Hi folks, I'm in the Northwood Cemetery in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and human remains have been discovered here. No surprise there. However, these remains predate the cemetery some 30 years, and they're buried in a mass grave that is unmarked. Dr. William Watson and his brother, Reverend Frank Watson, his grandfather worked for the railroad. They discovered some documentation that he had kept for many, many years of 57 Irish immigrants that died and were buried in a mass grave in Malvern, which is about 11 miles east of here, along the railroad grade. As they were working, they contracted cholera. Now in 1832, cholera was a big deal. There was a huge epidemic going on in Europe and had spread over here to the US. The Irish immigrants came down with cholera and began to die. However, cholera usually isn't 100% fatal. So there was always a conjecture that maybe some of them were killed. You have to keep in mind that the Irish immigrants were not well liked from the time period as they came in. The local people, and people in the US in general, thought they were coming to take their jobs. And some even thought maybe they brought the cholera disease with them and introduced it to the US. Now, through ground penetrating radar, they actually found some of the remains. This is in the Malvern location. Through forensic evidence, they were determined that some of these were killed. They found, I believe, a total of 4 or 5 bodies. The rest of the immigrants were buried too close to the tracks for them to be able to dig them up and recover their remains. But they discovered a bullet hole in the skull of one and a hatchet mark in another one. Now, how's that connected to this mass grave here in Downingtown, some 11 miles west? Well, through their research, the Watson brothers discovered there was a newspaper called the Village Record, and it printed an article in November 8th of that year about one, or maybe more than one, as far as we can tell it was just one, but it's possible it could have been more than one, immigrants who had escaped and headed west to the camp here in Downingtown. It was a different group of Irish people completing this cut. Now, when I say cut, these were sections of track that were contracted out by the railroad, and they were split up into cuts. So many miles you contracted for it. If you won the bid, then you hired your laborers to dig the trench or to grade it for the tracks to be laid down. Anyway, these immigrants, or this immigrant, proceeded to this camp, escaping from the death and mayhem, and infected, it said anyway in the newspaper, this group of Irish immigrants who were working here. Oh my goodness. You got a motor there. They believe there's the remains of 120 Irish immigrants here in this cemetery. Now, it's not in the grave area, it's off to the edge. And I'm not going to show you specifically where it is. I've been there, I've seen it. Right now, they've only discovered a few bits and pieces, a couple of human teeth, some bones, which were tested and positively identified as human. They're going to be coming back here to dig to recover, hopefully, all of the remains of 120. It's conjectured that all 120 were buried here in a mass grave and then forgotten. Later on, this became a cemetery. I believe it was started as a pauper cemetery at first, but I'm not really sure of that. Anyway, this became a cemetery. I believe the first burial was in 1872. These were buried in 1832. So some 30 or 40 years prior to this cemetery being here. Now, the reason why I'm not going to show you specifically where this is I don't want people, and I'm sure the Watson brothers and their investigative group don't want people milling around the area looking for souvenirs possibly. And they'll be back here digging at some point. There's been no timetable given as to when they're going to be back here to recover the rest of the remains, but they do want to recover the rest of the remains and then create a burial here in the cemetery and put a nice marker up here. They've done so with the remains that they've recovered at Duffy's Cut. They did repatriate at least one. There was a woman, actually, they found the remains of, but that woman was repatriated and the remains were returned to Ireland, and she was buried in Ireland. I don't remember her name offhand. Maybe you can leave the name in the comments. But the rest of the remains were interred in most of the remains ended up being interred in West Laurel Hill Cemetery in a nice large monument was erected there too. So if you ever get a chance to visit that cemetery or local in the area, check that out. I've seen pictures of it. It's actually really nice. And kudos to the work of the Watson brothers and their team. Various students aided in recovering these remains at Duffy's Cut. Since Dr. William Watson is a history professor at Immaculata, I'm sure they're going to be back out here to recover these remains here at the Northwood Cemetery. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this cemetery. I wish I could show you more of the location, but like I said, I do not want to give that location away, and I'm sure they would appreciate that, the investigators, that is. Folks, take care and be well, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh, don't forget, if you like these kind of videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe, hit that bell notification. So it's going to let you know when I upload another video. And of course, hit the thumbs up if you like the video. That really helps.